Year 3 and welcome to Lesson 1 this week of reading, and today we're going to be looking at Chapter 7, The Silver Arrow. Our learning objective will be to make a prediction about the silver arrow. Okay, so what I want you to do now is write down the dates in your books and then write down the learning objective and underline both of them with a pencil and ruler, neatest handwriting, and then unpause when you're ready for the Robin Hood recap. Okay, let's have a look at the recap in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we've got 3 questions. So the first question, who was the potter? Then, what happened when the sheriff and his men got to the forest? And finally, what is a tunic? Okay, pause the video now and see if you can answer those 3 questions based on our reading that we did on Friday. And then unpause when you're ready to check your answers with mine. Okay, well done. Let's have a look at the answers that I gave, so you can check in 3, 2, 1. Well, the potter was Robin Hood in disguise, but the sheriff had not realised this before. He didn't know, so he fell for Robin's trap. So the sheriff and his men were led to Robin's men in the forest, where they were outnumbered and tricked, and that's why that chapter was called The Sheriff is Tricked. And then finally, a tunic is a loose-fitting coat, or like a jacket without sleeves. Robin used it to disguise himself as the potter. So he's wearing a big tunic, which he threw off along with a cloak to show the sheriff eventually, when he got to the forest, that he in fact was Robin Hood and not a potter at all, and that the sheriff had been tricked. Okay, let's look at our vocabulary for today. Well, the first word, it says employed. And if you have employed someone, that means that you have given a job to someone. The second word is spluttered. And if you splutter something, you say something quickly with a spitting sound due to anger. Third word, treachery. So if you commit an act of treachery, then you have betrayed, or you've been disloyal, you've been bad to the king. You're trying to plot against the king if you are being treacherous. The next word is impatiently. And if you do something impatiently, you're restless and you're kind of annoyed. You're not happy about something, but you can't wait any longer. And finally, sullenly. So sullenly means in a dull, quiet way, which shows that you're not happy. So he sullenly said, "Someone ate all of my cake." But that's probably not what they say in this, so we'll have to keep an eye out for when these words appear in the reading. But first, what am I going to ask you to do? I'm going to get you to write sentences using these red words. I want you to try and use at least 3. See if you can get them in the same sentence, but it's not important if you can't. You can do 3 separate sentences if you want. Okay, so pause the video now and try to use these words in your own sentences about Robin Hood. Okay, we'll have a look at my sentence in 3, 2, 1. So I put, the sheriff shouted and spluttered at his men impatiently. So he's obviously not very happy about something there. So he's taking it out on his men. He shouted and spluttered at his men impatiently. You see, I've only used 2 words there, so I would have to do another one if I was going to, another sentence if I was going to use all 3. Maybe I'd do it about treachery or employed or suddenly instead. Okay, next one then. Let's have a look at today's reading. So if you remember, Robin led the sheriff and his men into the forest, and he threw off his cloak to tell them who he was after all this time when they thought that he was a potter. Let's see what happens next. Page 48. That letter was taken from him by 2 of my lads. It proves that you have employed a thief and a murderer wanted for his crimes." The sheriff spluttered with rage, but Robin Hood went on sternly. "I brought you here to give my men time to take Malbeat from the stocks. They are now taking him with your letter to Sir Hubert de Warenne. He is loyal to King Richard and will see that he answers for his crimes. Go back to Nottingham, Sheriff. You will answer for your treachery to the king." The sheriff's men dropped their weapons and the sheriff led them off. The young captain was about to leave when he suddenly leant down from his horse. "Was that a lucky shot, or did you miss the second time on purpose?" he asked. Robin met his eyes. "The miss was harder for me than the hit," he said softly. Chapter 7. The Silver Arrow. I say again, it was a foolish thing to do, Gisborne," said the sheriff impatiently. "Now de Warenne has your letter. He is King Richard's man, and will hold it against us until the king returns." "If he ever does," replied Sir Guy of Gisborne sullenly. "And until then, de Warenne can do nothing. But the Prince John can do nothing about..." That's where we leave it. We've got 4 questions to answer. Okay, with that reading. Question number 1. Which word does Robin use to describe Sir Hubert de Warenne as trustworthy to the king? So look for a word which means the same as trustworthy that Robin uses to describe Sir Hubert de Warenne. Question 1. Number 2. Which word shows that the sheriff has plotted against the king? That's one of our vocabulary words there as well. Number 3. What will happen to Richard Malbeat? That was mentioned as well. And finally, what do you think the silver arrow is? Why might it be important in this story? That's up for you to make a prediction. Okay, pause the video now. Have a go at those questions. And then afterwards, I will show you what I wrote. And we'll compare it with what you wrote. And we'll have a look at that in 3, 2, 1. So, Robin describes Sir Hubert de Warenne as loyal to the King Richard. He's loyal. The word treachery shows that the sheriff has plotted against the king because he employed an outlaw that was wanted for his own purposes. And Richard Malbeat is being taken from the stocks to Sir Hubert de Warenne, who will take him to King Richard to answer for his crimes. The letter showing the sheriff and Gisborne's employment of Malbeat has also been taken to Sir Hubert de Warenne. And then finally, the prediction is totally up to you. You say, I think the silver arrow is... You could have written anything there. And why do you think it's important in the story? I don't know. Can't wait to see what you've written. Anyway, let's move on in 3, 2, 1. Our next task, it says, at the start of the Silver Arrow chapter, the sheriff and Gisborne are talking about King Richard I. So what do we know from this conversation? We know that the king isn't there because they're talking about Prince John. So what might the king be doing? Where might he be? Remember our history lessons when we talked about King Richard and what he liked to do and where he used to go. Okay, give that a try. Pause the video now and then unpause when you're ready to see the final slide. 3, 2, 1. Okay, final slide. So we have a task here. Right, so the last task is to answer this question. And we've got a speech bubble here. It says, what would you have done if you thought you were walking into a trap? So you can also draw the trap if it helps. I want you to write down what you would have done if you were the sheriff. Okay, there's an extra task as well if you want. So you can design the silver arrow, you can draw it, and explain what it might be. Okay, well done today. The reading gems we covered today were retrieve, define, and predict. So we've done some good work there. And next time we will continue our adventure and see what happens. So join me again for more reading.